Hey everybody, Andrew Peterson here. This is my buddy
Ben Shive.
Ben Shive. We are in the Beehive, which is his studio here in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's a studio where I have spent a lot of time. We recorded Resurrection Letters Volume 1 right in here, and what year was that? 2018?
I have no idea.
17 or 18? I feel like time flies. Anyway, it's a great space, and this is where a lot of the stuff. Didn't the Arcadian come in here and record? A lot of the stuff? So right on the other side of the camera is the studio booth where those guys were recording stuff. So we're here because we are releasing the soundtrack of season 1, and that is very exciting. And the soundtrack is beautiful. And so Ben, can you tell them a little bit about what you did? So I'll say this before you do. So we had this collaboration between three smart people, actually more.
Three entities.
It was Kurt Heineke, who you've met. I think he's you might have just seen him on this live stream, who's a genius, wonderful man, musical genius, but he's done a ton of work in television and film. And then Isaac Horn from Arcadian Wild, and then Lincoln and Bailey, the rest of the band. Isaac wrote a lot of the themes and pieces, and the band performed a lot of the stuff. Kurt, did a lot of composing too. You compose a fair bit of stuff too.
Yeah.
And then your job, you were the music producer.
Yep.
So tell them what that means.
Well, I felt like when I was doing my job, actually the best was when I was just making sure that Isaac had what he needed to be able to feel supported while he composed. So I think at first we were trying to he would come up with cues and we were trying to figure out whether they were right for the show or not. And so some of that involved hearing from Andrew and the rest of the team whether they were the right thing. And there was a point at which the only reason I ended up writing any cues was because there was a point early on where it was we need to make some deadlines. So I kind of stepped in and wrote some things.
Oh, yeah.
But when it was really working the best was when after that season, Isaac kind of hit a stride of understanding what the show was supposed to sound like, and everything he wrote from that point on was just great. So
yeah, he's super, super awesome.
Yep. So I felt like it was just kind of and some of the producing was also just making sure that the cues sounded really good. So there would be times where we had to use, because, it's on a budget, we had to use a lot of sample libraries for instead of actual orchestra in a room, there's basically keyboard orchestra, but these days that sounds really good, but you have to work with it to make it sound good. So that ended up being my job. When somebody sent me a cue that they had written orchestration on, if I didn't feel like it sounded good enough for the record, then I had to be okay, send me the information that you send me the parts and I'll make them sound good.
So didn't you, whenever we kind of finished the soundtrack, gathered all the bits and pieces together, it went to you for a once over, right?
Yeah, that's when I did even more of that stuff. There was not that it doesn't matter, but when there's dialogue going on and when it's in the show, you can get away with a lot more. It's fake strings can sound a little fake if there's a whole scene happening.
Yeah, if there's a battle scene happening.
But once it was time to put it out as a record, then it was people are actually going to be listening, and so it needs to sound that much better. So yeah, when it was time to get the soundtrack ready, that's when I really had to earn my keep, because then I was going through and even sometimes being okay, this cue is just not interesting enough for a record. It was interesting enough for a scene, but it's not interesting enough for a record. So I would go through and just kind of add some things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have any favorite bits that you can think of?
I do. I'm trying to think what my favorite of Isaac's cues are. Oh, I wish I could. We just titled them all, and so I don't have them clear in my mind. I think when I like Isaac's cues best is when they have all the the Americana elements in them, but then he just found this really great way of putting orchestration with that, and I just think it's awesome.
Yeah, I love there are quite a few things I don't think we've talked about this on the live stream before, but when did you come up with the cue for Pete the Sock Man? I remember loving it right out of the gate because there's this real strong dissonance.
Yeah,
there's notes rubbing up against each other that shouldn't really be there. Yeah, to kind of convey Pete's state of mind.
Yeah.
the Glipwood Forest theme, was that an Isaac theme?
That I think so. Yeah.
Pretty sure that was an Isaac theme. So like something that we plugged in anytime the kids were in Glipwood Forest, just that would give it this element of danger and creepiness. I think my two favorites were the Kurt cue the whole bit for the very last scene.
Oh yeah, is that
that's
Janner's letter or tree?
Yeah, something like that.
See, I've got the old names in my head.
Yeah, we've renamed them like 15 times. But yeah, that whole scene was wonderful.
That's amazing.
I also loved the and I think it was you that did this one, the when they go into the weapons chamber, and they kind of see it, and there's the horns are playing,
Yeah.
And it feels like Goonies.
That's like that's
school.
that same Pete the Sockman cue, but it's slowed way down. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I wanted Pete's cues to have his arc. So it's like there's the ding 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 ding, but then you slow it down, so it's like the. But then when it's in the weapons chamber, it's like. And then it has that section that's like, yeah.
I love that so much. I didn't even
it's the
realize that was the same thing.
Yeah.
It makes me think of Inception.
Yeah.
In Inception, it was like, blah, like there's these horns that play. Every time the dream went deeper, like they actually like lowered the thing. Anyway.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's some like musical thing that they did every time the dream was in a deeper state. It was like they would.
That's cool. Is that Hans Zimmer?
Maybe.
I know he does some of the
it's probably
Christopher Nolan stuff.
Okay. Anyway, that's so cool.
Nice.
Well, anyway, we are so excited. I'm very grateful to Ben for all the work that he put into this thing. It wouldn't be what it is without him. And I said that we would try really quickly to sing a little bit of The Green of Risen Hill to celebrate this moment. Let me do this. I have no idea how to. This is gonna be weird. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Can you see the half moon rising from the sea so dark and wide? Far beyond the east horizon lies an island on the tide, where the land was fair and fertile, and the queen was fairer still, and she walked beside her noble king on the green of risen hill. Yeah, those chords are way prettier than the ones that I wrote when I wrote the thing. So thanks everybody. Last thing I will say. Oh, I meant to tell you guys this, that when Chris told me, hey, we need a song for Armel and the Bard, I was like, oh no, what is that even going to sound like? Because I'm pretty folky. So it's like, I don't use weird modes and stuff. But I remembered being in England last year, and we were in this little pub called the No Name Pub in Hampshire, which is near English Labrie, which is why we were there. And it's called the No Name Pub because it's been there for like 600 years, but there's no sign. It's called the White Horse, but there's no sign, so the locals call it the No Name. And so anyway, we needed a pub that looked like, they were like, hey, what should Shaggy's Tavern look like on the inside? So I had all these pictures of the No Name Pub, and I sent them to the art department. I was like, can you make the pub look like this pub on the inside? So Shaggy's Tavern looks like this pub. And then I remembered, when we were there last, there was this band playing all these like old British Isles folk tunes. And this, just like in the movies, this guy stood up in the back and he was like, and Johnny rode across the ocean to the place. Anyway, I found that sounded better than that, but I found the video. And I was like, oh, yeah, maybe Armel and the Bard's song can be like that. So it's not exactly the same. I didn't rip it off. But it was like, gave me the idea for the thing. So that's where The Green of Risen Hill came from. And that's the end of our segment of this live stream. Thank you to Ben Shive.
Thank you.
Kurt Heineke and the rest of the music team. See you guys later. Bye.
Fast to sleep, dark glory in the